Hey guys, it's Katie. So in this video I'm going to be showing you how to make these, and obviously there's little smears and stuff on them, but you'll see it throughout the video. I just finished making the video and I didn't have an intro, and so I wanted to show you the pieces. So here's one of them, using the pumpkin cane. Here's another one, using the black lace. And then here's another one using the technique we made the other day, and also using the cells cane. So we'll be making these. There's two of these. I just already wore the one. And then these two. Enjoy. One of these black ones. And this, I think, was the last bake I did here, just to check it. This was the first bake, and the light wasn't light enough, so I did the black. I lightened the last two colors, and this is what I got. So I just did one, but I wanted to do another one just in case it comes out really good, and I want to show you guys what I did. So the other one, I took the blue mix and I laid it on the blue mix. This is the scrap, but this one I'm going to take some green and purple mix, and I'm going to lay it on this side because I like this side better, so this will be what the back looks like. And I'm just going to lay it on my tile. And this is just the scrap from those other colors. This is rolled out on a setting 3 on my atlas, 150, so 0 is the thickest, 9 is the thinnest. So I'm just kind of smushing it on really well onto my tile. Okay, and then all I'm going to do, so what I was doing for the other one, I'm going to use my pumpkin cane, and I just cut my translucent off nicely, and I may show you how to do that if that one turns out nice. But this one I'm just going to take the black, and I'm going to begin laying slices on. So again, as even as you can get them, but if you can't, it's not the end of the world. And again, it's very difficult to cut on camera. So I'm just going to begin roughly until my cutter size. And this cutter, the reason why I chose this cutter is because it shows the pumpkin well. That's why I did the other one in this shape, because I can get the whole pumpkin with a little border of this. But I don't know what I'm going to do with this one yet. I might lay flowers on it. Oop, keep that. I'll probably need that for an end or something. And that's not a whole one either, so we'll keep that one for the edges. I didn't mess up one cut when I wasn't doing it on camera. I got a full square. There we go. And again, when the camera's not on my face, this is much easier to do. This would make a cool half a pendant, which is what I was thinking about using this for, as a half. Because I'm a big black fan. I like black. Trying to make this corner really pointy, so it kind of goes up in where they all meet. It's okay if some are thicker than others, because we can always shave it off. Now this translucent I got, even before I conditioned it, had a lot of micro bubbles in it. This was the regular translucent. And I've tried running it all the way down through my settings to get them out. Like I saw on a Pardo tutorial by Kalanya. I can't never say her name. I know she goes by the name of Day. She had a Pardo tutorial and how to condition translucent that I've watched, and going through the settings and then holding it and letting the rollers grip it. I even did that and it didn't take them out. It was like it's in the clay. For something happened with that got made, but it came and it was super crumbly too. It could have just been something in shipping, like it got too hot or something, I don't know. Now my other one, I'm baking without the pumpkin on it. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I want to get a nice sand and buff on the back, and then I'll use some Bacon Bond and add that, because I don't want to distort the shape of the pumpkin. So I'm not really going to be able to burnish it down in there because it's a cane, and I don't really want to distort my pumpkin shape. If they were smaller, it'd be one thing, but they're not. It's a big one. I'll probably have to put one up here. Like that. There's a little space right there, so I'll take some of this and lay it right there. And one more slice. It was kind of a thick slice, but that's okay. Oh, come on, get where I want you. And any ones that are sticking up a little bit, just like I've showed you with doing like Makume Gane. Just bend your blade. And you can slice off any bigger spots that are a little taller. Go slow, especially if your cane isn't crazy fresh. The rest I should be able to just burnish out. And you can get really, particular with that. And then I'm going to take a piece of wax paper like we usually do. This is a piece I'm trying to reuse. First I just go straight down with my fingers just to feel. Try to get the seams even that way. And I'll take my roller and I'll start rolling very gently from every direction. But this pattern is very organic, so if you distort it, it's not one of those patterns that you're really going to care very much. Or I don't really care very much. I guess you may, but I really don't. If I pull a circle to be wider or longer, I kind of want that organicness out of it. And again, you could roll this through your machine to stretch it, just like we did on the other one earlier. I like it. I'm not really sure what I'm doing with this, but this is how I created the veneer that I'm going to lay my pumpkin on. I have to decide what I really want to do with this, so I'm going to kind of think about it a little bit, because I might use this for like half a pendant like I do. I could do some flowers on the other side. I could do a nice metallic-y looking something. Let me see, do I have any metallic left? Or like any veneers I've made left? No, look good. ready for that. That one. These are all too light for what I want. No, these are too organic too. That one's already organic. I would want something a little more structured, or you know what I'm thinking? Let me grab, not really scrap, but yeah, scrap. Maybe I'll do this scrap. I think it was from my pumpkin. This scrap here. Let me roll it out into a sheet. And I think we might do the alcohol ink like we did on that other tutorial the other day where I blew it around with a straw. That might look cool on half of a pendant with that. Actually, I like with this color. I like that brown color. Maybe I'll use this one, because I don't like this reddish brown as much. But we're going to cover it up completely so it won't even show really. So we're going to cover it up with the foils. Only the back will show. Which I know some people really like backings. Again, I'm not huge on backing them. When I wear my pieces, they never, hardly ever flip around, and it's just for me. I'm making this for me, not for sale or anything, so I'm not overly concerned with backing them. But if you want to back them, be my guest. You can always back your pieces. Let me grab some Lisa Pavelka foil. And I like the Lisa Pavelka foils rather than the regular silver leaf because it seems to hold up better. They seem to, I'm going to do the gold one. I don't really like gold, but this looks good when you cover it with alcohol ink. But yeah, the Mylar backed foils seem to hold up better. They don't crackle as much, which is why I like them. Am I going to do this pendant? This cutter? I need to figure out what cutter I want to do first because I don't want to waste any foil. What one do I want to wear? This is my other new one. That might be a good one to do a half and half on. Yeah, let's do half and half on that one. So what I'll do is, like I've done before, I'll just score it. And I'm actually going to put this on a tile so I can move it around and stuff. Like that. And then I'll cut off any scraps. Because again, I don't want to waste the foil if I don't need to. And I hope my tutorial that I did helped you guys. I've heard a lot of bad things about the foils, but I don't have any issues with them. So go ahead and check out Fire Mountain Gems. Lisa Pavelka on there has a tutorial on how to use her foils. And that's what really helped me, and I don't really struggle with her foils at all. Because I didn't know really how to use them, so I searched it and found her tutorial on how to use her foils. And she gives you really good tips. So the big thing she said was you got to burnish. It's less about pressure and more about friction. So creating friction with your fingertips. So I'm going to lay it on here, and you want to try to get all your air bubbles out, she said. So please check out her tutorial. It's from Fire Mountain Gems on YouTube, and it's Lisa Pavelka's Mylar foils. And Lisa Pavelka herself goes over the tutorial, like how to use her foils. And like I said, they do not crackle as much. They don't split as much as the regular silver leaf or gold leaf or any kind of leaf you're using. So you want to try to get out all the air if you can. And then it's really just about the heat and the friction from your fingers. It's less about the pressure. So it might be easier if I cut this sheet. I didn't want to cut it, but now I've already started. Whatever, I'll have to make do. So I don't know if you can see here, I usually get almost all of it off. I mean, there's a tiny little, I mean, if you take your time and really, really burnish, you can get most of this off in one go. I've had these for a long time and I hadn't used them until recently. Definitely spend enough time burnishing. I wouldn't rush this part, because if you rush it and it doesn't come off as great, then you got to go back and do it again, and it's just easier to do it right the first time. So sit here for a minute and burnish really well. Like I said, she says it's less about pressure and more about the friction. And it's okay if it doesn't work, you can just lay it back on and do it again. Again, I really should have cut this piece because it's kind of getting stuck on things and it's pulling up. We're going to do another tutorial using this soon. I'm just waiting for some other stuff to come in. I really like the way it looks. I've made a couple recently and people really like them. I really like them too, especially for this time of year where it's getting into fall and the holidays. That kind of metallic-y look I really like. It reminds me of like New Year's Eve and that kind of stuff. Christmas time. Okay, and then you're going to pull it off like a Band-Aid. Look, I missed one little piece right there, but it's off my pattern, so I'm okay with that. So really just take the time to burnish it, and I don't see what the big issue is. I mean, I've seen some comments on different clay sites where people say they had trouble with it sticking and stuff, but I've never really had an issue with it. I watched that tutorial, and Lisa Pavelka's tutorial on how to use it, and I've never really struggled with how to use them. And they stick really well. They don't crackle tons. They do crackle, and it's a nice shimmery crackle. It's pretty. Now, if I would have thought about this, I would have rolled my clay out a little thinner, because when your cutter's going down into it, it can, even with silver leaf, it can kind of bend the clay, obviously, but it can kind of pop it up a little bit. So usually I tend to run that part out a little thinner. So we're going to have to try to get these guys both to the same thickness, both of the veneers too. So I'm going to do just like I did on that other tutorial a couple weeks ago, where I drip the alcohol inks and blow with a little cocktail straw or a little coffee stir straw or whatever. I just got one at the store. When you stir your coffee, and it has like this little straw. These work really well because it's very concentrated air. It's easier to blow than a regular straw. So if you haven't seen that tutorial, go see that tutorial. It's where I did the square pendant with the beads on it. And I show you exactly what I'm going to do, but that takes a while, so I'm not going to show you. So I'm just going to blow different colors that I feel like, and then I'll be back when it's dry. Now it's not dry yet, but this is the one I just came up with. And this I used, on top of that gold foil, I used Ranger's Pearl Mixative. I used the Alcohol Pearl Mineral by Ranger. It's their new pearls. I used the Pinata Black. Yeah, the black one. And then I used the Alcohol Pearl in Smolder. So these are the colors I got, and I kind of still got to dry. It's definitely not done drying yet. And I do have a little moisture from blowing through the straw on it. Sorry, my fiance must be home. Yep. Dogs are excited. So I'm going to let that dry. And then I do have to take this one here and run this through the pasta machine. Well, actually, I think that was on setting 3 as well. Hang on. So they need to both be the same height, and this one might actually be a 4. I'm not 100% positive what setting I rolled this out on. So I am going to pick it up and put it on a number 3, because I know that's what I ran this through. And you want them as close as you can to the same height. Ooh, don't rip. If they're not exactly the same height, it's not the end of the world. But you want them as close as you can get them to the same height. So that ripped right there a little bit. So I was rushing. Now, where's my paper? Right here. I'm going to burnish that back together before I roll it through. The dogs might start barking again because he's coming in. They get all excited. And he gets home. Okay, so I'm going to run this through on 3, just to make sure. It's probably going to stretch it out some, so it did. It stretched it out a little bit. And this translucent's really stiff, so it did crack a hair, but I'm not worried about it. I don't want to flatten it down too much, actually, because I'm going to have to pick it up. Okay, so now we have to cut them out, just like we do when we do a double pendant. I'm going to get one more tile out here, the tile I'm going to bake on. So pick a part you like. And you're going to get 2 for 1 out of this, because we're going to cut one out of here, and then cut it in half. Kind of like this part here. Let's see if I can. And we're going to recut them out, so it's not the end of the world if they're going to get a little distorted. Don't throw this away, because there's still a lot of good stuff right here. I just need to find a spot to set it. Okay, so there's that half. Clean up the edges a little bit. Just get rid of this little scrap. Plastic cutters don't ever cut as sharply as metal cutters do. And I usually don't clean up the scrap until it's all done baking. But because we're going to stick it on with another one, or we're going to set them on top of each other, I don't know which one's going to be set on top right now. That back's kind of sticky, so it might be this one, but we'll see. So then we got to cut this one out. And these scraps, see how when it crackles it makes like a pretty shimmer? It's not like a huge crackle. That's what I like about them. It's like this pretty shimmery. And when I pick it up, it's going to do the same thing. It's going to crackle a little bit, but it's hard for you guys to see that. I'm sure you can see the big crackles, but okay, so now we're going to have to lay one on top of another. Which, if I can help it, I'm trying to get all these little pieces off, because I think this one's going to go on top of that one, because that translucent I have is really friable. Now we might get a mess on top of that other one, but we can always clean it up. But you're going to do this quickly. You don't don't want to go, sorry, I don't know what the heck they're doing upstairs. You don't want to be slow about this. You do not want them sticking together if possible, okay? So when you lay it on, you want to get your design where you're going to cut roughly planned out. So I don't usually cut on a seam, at least where I plan on drilling my hole. I don't want a seam there. So, you know, if I'm going to drill my hole up there, I can cut on this seam down here, but I don't want to cut seam to seam if I can help it, because it's just a weaker point to drill a hole through. What the hell did I just... Oh, and I just got shit on that from my fingers. Yeah, I'll have to take some... Actually, when I sand that off, that will probably come off fine, actually, because it's not down in. Or I could take some alcohol to get that off. Okay, let's see. How do I want to do this? Maybe something like that. So then you want to lay them on top. Don't push them down, just get them close. Take your cutter or your blade. Make your cut. Separate them right off. Boom. Separate them. Okay. So we have this one here. And it did get a little of that brown on the top. Now I can right off take some alcohol, some 99% alcohol, and wipe that off. Or you could sand it off after, whatever you'd like to do. This is the easiest way I know of to line two designs up on one pendant. Same thing with this one. Okay, now I do want to clean this side up before. So usually I'd sand it, but if I go to burnishing, that's going to stick down in there. So I'm going to take some 99% alcohol, paper towel, or even a baby wipe would work. I want to see if I can get that out of there. Because it actually, as you can see, the clay is actually coming off. It's actually dissolving your clay. Now you don't want to do this 100 times because it will start to dry your clay out. And that smear is because it was actually moving the top layer of clay, but that's okay. 'Cause again, we're going to sand. Do the same thing on this one. And we can sand this half, but we cannot sand the other half. The one with the foils on it, you can't sand that half. I'm going to take a Q-tip. If it's close to the seam. You could also put something on your seam, like one of those translucent leaves or any kind of design you could put down the seam. Okay. Now I'm going to take my paper, my wax paper. burnish it together. So first I push down just to make sure they're both the same height. And I'm going to start to like push them together gently because you don't want to make your seam all wonky. But it does happen. But you could push more one way or another way if it starts to get wonky. We've done pendants like this many times. Now without putting a lot of pressure, just with the weight of the roller, I'm going to roll this out a little bit. Just to flatten it off. Because I have been picking these pieces up. Now you don't want to roll off the edge of your piece if you can help it, because then that way it will bevel the edge. So go real slow when you get to your edge. This will help set it together too. Okay, and then we got to recut our piece out. Just wipe my cutter off quickly, just in case I had any silver or of the leaf on it. I'm going to recut it out. And this is on my baking tile, which is why I tend to work right on my baking tiles most of the time. One, it's easier to spin it around, and two, then it's just there and ready to go. Take my craft knife and just kind of pull away this scrap here. Because it's not much, it's just a little bit. Where's my junk clay? Here we go. To get on a bunch of junk. And when resin goes on this metallic stuff, it looks really, really nice. So I'm going to do the same exact thing with the other one. I'm going to get it in the oven. I'm going to bake it at, I bake at 275 unless I'm using like Cernet. 275 for a full hour because I'm not going to be putting a back or a smear on these. If you were going to do a back or a smear, you could bake it for a little less because you were going to do another bake. And then you'd do a full hour, but this is going to be finished after I do it. Because again, I don't mind the backs looking like backs look. I really don't mind backs like this. They don't bother me at all. But if they bug you, put a backing on after it's baked. So I'm going to do the same thing with this one. I'll get them in the oven. I'll bake them for a full hour at 275, or for your manufacturer's recommended temperature, depending on what clay you're using. But I always bake for an hour. I don't care what clay I'm using. It just gets stronger. If you haven't watched Cindy Leach, I think it's Leach, her tutorial, polymer clay, different clays, a 30-minute bake to a 60-minute bake, and most all of them get stronger. So I always do a 60-minute bake. If I'm doing multiple bakes, though, I'll do like 30 minutes, and then an hour. But at one point, I do a full hour. So I'm going to finish the same thing with this one. So this one just came out of the oven. This is the one I was making and decided to show you how to put that veneer. So this one I didn't cut in half. I just did it the same way I showed you. This is the one I'm going to apply my pumpkin onto, that I believe I'm going to apply my pumpkin onto, like that. So what I'm going to do with this once it's cooled is I'm going to sand it 400, so the grits are going to be 400, 6, 8, 1000, 1500, and then I'm going to buff it. And I've showed you this in other pendant tutorials. I'm going to buff it with my orange buffing wheel and then my white buffing wheel. This is the back that I still have to obviously sand. This had the scrap here, the Pardo scrap on it, so that's what's showing through. but I actually really like it. So I don't usually do backs. It does have a little waxy surface that will come off when I sand it. So I'll sand and buff it, and then I'll bake and bond that guy, the pumpkin guy, on here, and then I'll resin the whole thing. But I'll come back and show you after it's sanded. It's still got to cool off. It's still a little warm. But I like it. I think that it's a cool veneer. In any of the colors. You know, I was playing earlier. Just playing earlier. That's why I was showing you them, because these all still got to be sand and buffed and everything, but I think they're cool. I bet you guys are going to come up with some pretty awesome things to do with this design. You know, so this is my black one. And it is slightly translucent. I don't think, hang on, let me get my camera off. So because it's, because it's black and on a translucent background, yes, I'm smoking, you can see it. It's on a translucent background too. It's not that translucent, but come on, refocus. It is still slightly translucent. So anyways, I'm going to get that sanded, and I'll show you when it's done with that part. And yeah, you can see the square, so you can make these round, you can make anything. I mean, it's flat, but you can tell where I seamed it together, or I can, and you will be able to, because we made it. But no other people would be like, oh yeah, you seamed a couple pieces there. No one's gonna know that but us. Now these ones just came out of the oven, and I am gonna sand this side of it, but I'm gonna be very careful that I don't touch the and I probably actually won't do 400. I'll probably start at 600 on this one, just because it's actually really smooth already. So I'm just going to be careful that I don't touch the other side of it, because you can sand off that leaf, and you don't want to. I'm just going to do 6, 8, 1000, 1500 on this one. Just a little bit. I'll do the back as well, from the 400 up. Just a little bit of sanding on these guys, just to get any of that smear from that alcohol ink or that alcohol off. And again, I'm being very careful I don't touch the other side, and I'm actually being quite delicate with the other side too, because though it's on there, it's not sealed yet. There's a little white fleck in it, but I think it's down in the clay. Okay. And it's actually, you know, quite smooth, like I said already, from burnishing it. Got it quite smooth already. So I'll just finish sanding these. I'll do this one, and I did another one. This one's on the green. And it actually shows through. It's kind of cool looking. See how it's like green behind it? So I'll sand these ones. I'll sand the backs as well. I'm okay with the backs looking like this. You may not be, so you can, at this point, add a backing on if you want, and then bake a backing on. And then when they're sanded, I'll be back and I'll show you how I'll finish my pumpkin one. Okay, so they're all sanded. This one I just quickly buffed, and like really quickly. I did the orange and the white, and you can see the difference. The problem is once this goes in the oven again, the shine will go away, so I didn't go crazy buffing it. I can see that this has like a blue tone to it because of the backing, and this one has like a green tone and a little purple over here because of the backing, which I like that. So depending on what kind of backing you put on there. This was the scrap from this one that I showed you, that I made. This was the scrap from the rest of that. So this one looks more purpley, this one looks more green, depending on what side of the back it's on. So I sanded just these sides of these guys, and I will buff just those sides too. I did have to take it up and run it under the sink to get any sandpaper, that white film that occurs after you sand, out from the seam. So I just gently rubbed it underwater. I wanted to finish this one. So the reason why I didn't put the pumpkin on is because I wanted to get a good shine before. Now, I will have to rebuff it, and I can sand the pumpkin as well, but I wanted to try to get as much as I could before I applied it. So I took my pumpkin cane that I made a couple of weeks ago, maybe a week and a half ago, and I just cut off the translucent. Just with my craft knife, went around and nitpick cut the translucent off. Then all I did was take my finger and kind of pat it down, because it was kind of square in certain spots. So I took my finger and like patted it, and I took my in these areas here where I wanted the pumpkin to like go in, I just kind of rolled it. You can kind of change the shape of things. You want it more round. I also did that right here. I kind of just pushed it in a little bit. Now this isn't the thinnest slice in the world. I'd probably say it's setting 0 on my pasta machine, but that's okay with me. So now I have to pick, I'm going to use this side as the top. I'm going to get some bacon bond because I want this to adhere well. And I find when I leave a translucent layer on something like this, you can really see it, and that's why I cut it off. So I'm going to apply, well, let's see where this is going to go somewhere. You know what I'm going to do? I think I'm going to apply it to the back of this guy. And you don't want a lot, but you do want enough to make it sticky. And you definitely want to cover the whole thing. Get the edges good and everything. Nice thin layer. I'm just laying it on. I'm trying to pick it up. And I don't want to drag it around my pendant if I can help, because the bacon bond will kind of make what shine I've already created dull. But I do want this to be stuck on, so I am patting it out. I am going to take a piece of this parchment, but I don't want that shimmer on it. Yeah, over there. Just kind of gently pat it down with this. And I can sand this. Again, I'm going to sand this afterwards, because it is full polymer clay. We made that pumpkin cane. Just want to make sure it's fully down on my pendant. You can take any edges, look a little square from where I fussy cut my translucent off. Now I wasn't planning on doing a tutorial on this, but I thought it was actually going to come out cute, so then I was like, well, I might as well show them. So that's why I didn't show you fussy cutting it, but really it's just cutting it out and taking your time and making sure you get it all. And this is that longer one I did, but you can shape it into any shape you want. It's not 100% centered, but I'm actually okay with where it's at. Because I don't think anybody will really notice that. And I do see a little bacon bond squirted out right here, so I'm going to try to wipe that off with the blunt side of my craft knife. Good Take a Q-tip to it. It is clear when it does bake, but you will be able to see that. Okay, and then I'll bake this at a full hour. I think that will be cute. The other ones I will finish buffing, and then I'll buff this side, I'll buff the black, and then I'll buff the backs as well, and then I will resin them, and I'll show you those when those are done. Now, I did just want to show you these before I applied resin. Any of these little grooves and stuff, those will be taken out with the resin. You won't see those, but you see how glassy it is? This is the back, which again, I'm fine. I actually like the placking in it, those air bubbles. I actually like the way those look. And I somehow got a little piece of white in that translucent, couple spots of it, but again, these are just for me. I really like this side here. So anyways, you can tell it's got some purple in here compared to the other one's got more green. This one's got a good amount of green too, except for purple right here. So depending what you lay these on, it's really going to depend on what it looks like. I haven't started baking this one. I just going to go up and get in the shower. And obviously if I had a Lucy Clay slicer, I would have a nice even slice, but I don't, so that's what I have. And when I sand it down, I'll sand it flat, and that will help. Now I am going to use a resin that won't distort these. I'm going to use the Easy Dome because they are fairly thin and flexible, but polymer clay is plastic, so it is supposed to be flexible if baked correctly. If it's brittle, then you didn't bake it right because it'll snap, but you don't want it to snap. You'd rather have it flex. And then when I apply the resin, like on this one was roughly about the same thickness, it'll firm it up. You can still bend it a hair. This one I used a resin, the Decorum, that does distort a little bit. You can see it's bowed just a little bit there, but I don't mind the way that looks. But I'm going to use one that doesn't because those are slightly thinner. So I'm going to use the RJ Crafts resin, and I'll get these resined. I'll take a shower while they're doing their thing because it takes forever, and I'm so impatient. And then I'll get this one in the oven. But I wanted to show you unbuffed. So these ones are all done being resined. So I'll put there. I don't know. And I'll actually drill it up at the top this way, where the seam isn't close, over here. So there's one. And this one I'll drill up here. Oh, I gotta add a little more resin. It pulled away, or I missed it or something. I gotta add a little bit more there. So I'll add a whole nother coat. You can't just do a spot because you'll see where it is. So yeah, it must have been a big air bubble or something. It's weird that I didn't see it, but I'll add another coat on that one. The rest looks fine. And then here's this plain one. That's just the smearing of this Easy Dome. If I rub my finger across it, you see it has this oily top layer that needs to be wiped off. I love how this back is showing through. And these are in it. This is flat. It's just inside there. I love how the back is showing the green through. And then the pumpkin is done. Just came out of the oven. And so I'm going to sand him down flat on the table. I'll sand it like this to try to make it a little thinner. And then I'll resin this one as well. And this one will probably take a couple coats, because I won't do one thick coat. I'll probably do a light coat on the background, do another one until it gets high enough to cover the whole thing. Now if you made a border stand up a little higher, it would be easier to fill it in with resin. And I kind of showed that on my mosaic pendant, how I made a border come up over the edge. That way you could fill it in with something. So anyways, I will sand that tomorrow. It's like 11:30 Sunday night, so I will do this tomorrow, and then I'll show you guys when they're done. So I know I have a mess going on right now, but I've been sanding, and I'm on my last grit, 1500. I did 4, 6, 8, 1000 to 1500. I'm just kind of evening the top layer off because it wasn't cut perfectly. If you have a Lucy clay slicer, you'll cut it perfectly, but mine wasn't, so I'm trying to even it off. And all I've been doing is trying to put as much even pressure as I can face down on the table, so I'm not really hitting my background, I'm just hitting the pumpkin itself, and that way I can buff the pumpkin. I've already sanded the background, which is why I did the pumpkin after the fact, so I could have a nice smooth background and not have to try to sand around this pumpkin, which I knew would be quite difficult to do. I do want to say to you guys, and I forgot to say this before, someone made a comment the other day that I never respond to their YouTube comments. I do read them. I left my house at 6:30 this morning to head to work. I had about a 10-minute lunch. I had a bunch of patients this morning, a bunch of new patients, ran behind, had to clean, write all their notes up after their cleanings, sterilize everything. I had about 10 minutes for lunch, shoved my food down my face so fast I got a stomach ache. Then I had I had 5 patients this afternoon, each, well, mostly an hour apiece. A couple of them were over an hour. I didn't finish my last patient until after 5:30. I had to write all the notes up, sterilize all the afternoon stuff, get ready for the next day. I didn't leave work until, what was it, 6:02. Didn't get home till after 6:30. Luckily, I was in the closer office today. I ate dinner. It's now 8 o'clock. So a lot of times I will check any YouTube notifications on my quick 10-minute lunch break. I do read them. It doesn't mean I get to respond to all of them, because then when I go on Facebook, I have 50 or more notifications to check out. And I do try to respond to as many as I can, but this isn't my full-time job. You know, I'm just trying to do this on the side. I have not made a dime off of this, and I don't want to. Again, that wasn't my intention. My intention was just to share what I'm doing and to inspire people and maybe help someone along the way, or give them an idea of something they could do, or give them the encouragement that they can do it and they can achieve what they want to achieve. It's not to make money. You know, someone asked me on YouTube today if I could write out the instructions. So far I have 58 tutorials, and most of the tutorials are over an hour long. To write out every single step when I work full-time, to do that at night, I don't see it. I don't have it in me to do it, guys. So I can't write out steps and then put it into a PDF format and then email it to everybody. And I just don't have that in me, because half the time when I've made the cane, that was the first time I made the cane, and if I'm going to write out steps, I'm going to be re-watching the video, pausing it, writing down the notes. It'd be one thing if this was my full-time, or if I didn't work. I didn't already have a full-time job where I spent 12 hours a day at. It'd be another story, but I already have a full-time job. I'm trying to pay off my over $100,000 in student loans. this is just my passion and I don't want to make it a job. And that's why I'm not doing any paid patron account or tutorials, because I don't want to make it a job. This is my enjoyable thing. And so, you know, if you want to write yourself instructions, you can pause at any point in time, because that's what I would be doing, pausing, writing it down. Usually when I do the tutorials, if I've ever done anybody's tutorial with them, I pause, I watch it first all the way through. Sorry, my dogs are wrestling. Boys! Hang on. Sorry, they're going to be wrestling. I watch the tutorial through so I know what's going on. Then I pause at each step. It's just how I watch tutorials. When I was learning and beginning and watched tutorials, that's what I did. Now I just kind of go, I'm showing you videos and stuff I want to create, okay? I'm not doing videos on stuff I don't want to create, because why? Why would I make something I don't want to make? You know what I mean? This is for me to have fun. This is my relaxed time. And pretty much all I'm doing is just recording it and explaining to you what I'm doing. And if people like it, great. And if they don't, okay. That's why I don't usually sell my art, even though all the time people are like, you should really sell it. I don't want to make a job of my art. This is my after work, relaxing thing. That's why people are always like, how do you have time to do it? Because this is my thing. This is my fun time. This is my chill out time. I really enjoy just relaxing with all of this. So, and I'm hoping to share that with you of what I'm doing. So, anyways, I do read your comments, and I do respond to a lot of the Facebook ones, but I don't respond to all of them. I try to at lunch as much as I possibly can. I usually try to post usually 2 or 3 tutorials a week, which is what I'm creating after work. This video will take 2 days of a 5-day week, or more. Actually, I created the canes one day, I started these projects the next day, and this is the 3rd day. So there's 3 days out of 7 so far I've been working on these. And then it's going to take me a while to edit it. It's going to take me 4 or 5 hours to upload it. So this is becoming a job. You know, there are a lot of good people in my group that when people ask questions, they will respond to those questions. And if I see the response and it's what I would have answered, I won't answer. I won't go, yep, ditto. You know what I mean? But I will put in my 2 cents if I do. If someone asks a question and I do think I can answer it, I will answer it. You got to give me time. You know, I'm quite busy. And I know I've said that before, but I am quite busy, and I'm trying to do the best I can. So all I'm doing is just cleaning up any little bits. So I sanded up to 1500, and I'm pretty happy with that sheen I have. And obviously, like I said, when you buff it, your sheen from your buff is going to go away. But the background is still quite shiny. And Jackson, the reason why I cut the translucent off, and I'm going to do this one with my my black lace cane, I guess I called it. I'm going to do this one with this cane here. I'm going to lay it over a veneer just like I made this veneer, just with this one. I know it's hard to see on camera. And I'll show you how I fussy cut. Now, the reason why I did not leave the translucent on the cane is because you would see a bulk of translucent all the way around this. Okay? So that's why I took the translucent off. So there was just the pumpkin sticking up and not a layer of translucent as well as a circle, or I think I reduced them as an oval, so it would be an oval layer of translucent. So that's why I fussy cut it, and I will show you how once I make a veneer of this, now that you can see it, this lace cane, the same way I made this veneer on some scrap. And then I'll show you how I fussy cut it out, because that's the only part that will be different. Pretty much what I need to do now before I resin this is go upstairs and make sure I'll run it under the faucet and take an old toothbrush to it. Well, it's a new toothbrush because I work in a dental office, but take a toothbrush to it and make sure I clean up all the sanding grit that gets kind of stuck down in there. And that way I'm making sure I'm resining right to it. The next thing I'm going to do is buff, and I'm going to buff with my 2 buffing wheels, and I've showed this in a bunch of tutorials. I'm going to first buff with this orange one, and I have posted the link before on my buffing video. There's a link. Buffing, I think it's called buffing with a Dremel, buffing polymer clay with a Dremel. There's the links right in there for these buffing wheels. I start with the orange because it's more coarse, and then I go to the white. It's pretty simple to use. I've showed you with the Dremel. Now there's different Dremels and there's different buffing tools. I prefer the Dremel. I don't have a flexi lead because it's just more things you have to attach, so I just use the handheld. It's a Dremel 4000 I got off of Amazon, and it's a refurbished one. It's reconditioned by Dremel, so it was cheaper. I think it was like $100 or so. I've had it for about 3 years. It's still holding up. This one has speeds from 0 or 5 to 35. I usually buff anywhere around from 15 to 20. When I first started, I was slower with it. I did go slower with it. Now, you have a lock button, and that's what opens and closes this chuck to slide your bit in and out, okay? So you want to hold your lock button down, unscrew it, slide your bit in, keep your lock button down, and you're going to tighten it. Give it a pull with your lock button down. Make sure it does, see, I pulled pretty hard, but it still slid out. So give it a tug, make sure it's fully in there. I mean, these are soft even when they're rotating, so it's not going to cut you, but if you were using something that was coarse, like a carbide bit or a diamond bit, it could, potentially. All I'm going to do is I'm just really going to buff. Sometimes I do circles, sometimes I do straights, it really doesn't matter. I'm going to go till I'm happy on this one, and then I'm going to use this one. I have showed you this before, so I'm not going to show you this again, because I've showed it on almost, I think, every pendant tutorial I've done. And if you've used a Dremel, you will see it yourself. So I'll show you that when that's done. So right now, I'm sanded on the pumpkin, but I'm not really buffed. And I will try to buff my background as well again. So I'm going to do that, and then I'll go up and clean it. And I also haven't buffed the back. I've sanded it, but I haven't buffed it, so I'm going to buff that too. Now, I've buffed the pumpkin with my orange, but just look at my background. I've buffed this end with the orange, and I haven't rebuffed that end. Can you see the shine? Buffing really brings it to life, but you can see where I can't get up all around the pumpkin, which is why I did the initial sand on the background, because once resin covers that, that will be fine. But if that was as coarse as it was when it first came out of the oven, it wouldn't be as nice. So that's why I sanded the background first and did this as a 2-part. So I'm going to finish buffing the rest, but I did want to show you that difference between the top and the bottom where my finger is. The shinier you can get it before you put it in the resin on it, the better. Okay, now it's fully buffed with both wheels. Yes, I have a little indent in the middle there, but that's all going to be covered with resin. Again, you can smear the sides. I do have a little dust in the crack there between the 2 veneers, but I'll go clean that in the sink. You can smear the sides. I've showed you how to do that before. You can also add a backing. Again, this is my personal preference. I don't mind not having a backing because I'm just wearing these for me. I actually do like the plaquing that happened in the translucent where the air bubbles were trapped. I actually like that. So all of that is your personal preference. You know, if you're selling them, doing different things, well, that's going to be a different story than if you're personally wearing them. Today I wore one of the ones I showed you that I made, and I got a lot of good compliments on it. So people tend to like them. Again, I never have them flip over on me, so no one's really ever seeing the back. Now, if I would have put a backing on this, that purple that showed through really wouldn't have shown through at all. The same with this one. You're getting like that tint of coloring through from behind. You really wouldn't have gotten it if I would have put a complete back. So I do like the slight transparency and the light that's allowed through to show through. It makes the white of that look lighter than if it was dark. I don't know if you're seeing that, but see? So I like that, but that's, again, personal preference. So I'm going to go up in this to the sink, and I'm going to clean this off. I'm also going to take probably this scrap that I had from those canes, and I'm going to lay on my black lace the same way I laid on this, because the black lace is square. So I'm going to lay it on this. I'm going to roll this probably out to a 3 on my pasta machine. Now I could mix this into one solid color, or I could leave it like this. I kind of actually like on this one it has the two color because it does have some purple in it, so I actually kind of like that. So I'm going to lay on the black lace cane on this, and so you'll see some of this through here, and then I'll show you how I fussy cut the pumpkin. I may actually mix it a little bit more than this, try to Skinner blend it because it's almost in a vertical line. So I may Skinner blend it a little bit more. Plus it'll help condition it because it's been sitting here all day. For 2 days actually. To see if I can get the orange and to get an orange side and then a white side or a red side. So it's already starting to blend, so I may do that. So it's just a little more cohesive. But again, it's not going to show much. It's just going to show a little tint through, and I'm going to be wearing these, so I'm totally okay with that. And then I'll show you how I cut out the pumpkin. Because I didn't show you that. I wasn't even going to show you this, but I decided that they were actually looking really cute, and I wanted to show you them. And that way I showed you what I was going to do with my pumpkin. I still have another idea for the pumpkin, but it's coming. I have stuff coming. Some leaf designs for the fall coming, a stencil, and some stamps. So I'm just waiting on those to come. I was also waiting on a Lucy slicer. Now, I do have to say, I have never been paid a dime for ads. I haven't put the ads in, even though you can make money off of putting ads in, even if you guys hit skip ad. I haven't done that. I apologize if an ad shows. It's not my fault. It's YouTube's. I have not been paid by any retailer to recommend their products or anything. I have not been given anything. I do have a lady in Vermont, and I'll see if she's okay with me saying her name, who has seen my videos and realized I was from Vermont, and like I said, she's from like 20 minutes away, and bought some stuff, some clay stuff for either her granddaughter or niece, and then realized some of the stuff was a little too fancy for a kid, and actually she likes to pay it forward, and she actually would like to donate some supplies to me, some ceramic clay and stuff. And I believe, which is a godsend, I believe she bought me a Lucy clay slicer. Now if she didn't, it's totally fine. I can get my own. I'm not expecting anything from anybody. But if she did, oh my god, that is such a big gift. That would be, oh, I can't even say. Yeah, I can't, I mean, like I said to her on the phone, if she really got me one, I'm speechless. That's an amazing gift. That's more than I would expect for Christmas from my family. So someone is donating stuff to me, so I cannot say, well, I haven't gotten anything yet, but I can't say someone hasn't offered something to me. I'm going to go meet her tomorrow. I'm very excited to meet her. So anyways, I'm just kind of blending this. It's getting a little more orange. I may want to fully blend out this yellow. So what I would do is either you can fold the yellow in, or you can skew it a little bit, like this. Skew it to the side and then begin folding straight back up. And then once I get it folded up a couple times, I will skew it the other way. See, it pulled some orange in there. I always squish the sides just to keep it kind of smaller for my pendant width and height. So once I get it skewed back up that way, now that I'm folding straight, what I'll do is I'll skew the orange or the yellow that way. And that should help bring some of this orange over. And when I fold back up, it should help bring some over and get rid of such a stark yellow. Even though in real life it's not really stark. This is translucent clay. It's pretty muted because it was alcohol ink. But I'm not looking for a perfect Skinner blend either. This is going to be a background. See how there's some orange in there? So I'll blend this a few more times. Doesn't need to be perfect. I'm not. And I'm only doing a setting 3 because once I lay the cane on it, and again, I'm not perfect at slicing, that will also add some thickness. This one here is not very thick at all. One notch on the ruler, maybe 1.5 notches on the ruler. It's actually pretty much one notch on the ruler. So it's not very thick. I'm okay with my pendants. Now this is actually pretty sturdy because this one's on here. This one's, now that it's resined, is pretty sturdy, but when they're not resin, they're fairly flexible. And that's what you actually want. You'd rather have it flexible than overly rigid and have it break. It is a plastic base type material. I mean, it's not like drinking bottle plastic, but you know what I mean. So yeah, I'll probably use that. Let me fold it in half one more time to get a smoother roll. Yeah, I'll probably use that for my pendant. And I'm actually going to leave the bubbles in because I liked that in person. I like the way that looks. So I will actually, what I'll do is put this on a tile. Clean my tiles. Because even when you bake clay on them, you still get this residue. So I'm actually going to put this on the tile. I like this side better, so I'm going to have this show my back. And I'm going to smush it down really well. And that way I can try to get out as many air bubbles from... And I don't lay my, as I've said before, I don't lay mine on plastic or on paper to prevent shiny spots. I sand them out. I don't usually get any shiny spots on the finished product. I do get some little air divots, like air bubble divots. Again, I don't mind them as long as they're smooth. My finger just glides right over them. But again, that's all personal preference and what you're actually making these for. If you're making these for someone other than you, you may want to put it back on. Plus, I don't like to waste the clay on backs. Anyone I've sold to has never said they didn't like the back, because again, that's not really what they're looking at. The way my pendants hang, because I put a bail right at the top, you don't really ever see the backing. Sometimes if you make your own bail and you set it here, it tends to tilt forward when you're wearing it, so you may see the back that way. But because I put a jump ring right at the tippy top, it always hangs down. I mean, I've never once had it flip, and I've been wearing my own pendants for like 6 months. I do wear them on like a 16-inch cord, so if I wore it on a really long cord down to like my, you know, middle of my chest, like with a chunky sweater, it could potentially flip by getting banged around. But again, I wouldn't mind if someone saw that back quickly. I really, what's that compared to black or something? But you could put the same cane on the back if you wanted to use that cane up for that. I like to use mine more on the front. So I'm going to cut out the pieces of my lace cane and lay them on here. And I'll go upstairs and I'll clean this off with some water. And then I'll fussy cut I'll show you how I fussy cut the pumpkin that I applied on here. And I do have to say, now that I'm making another one to show you the pumpkin, and it's, what is it, close to 8:40 now, this will not be finished until tomorrow. So this will be the 4th day for this project, right? I did the cane one day. I started this project one day. This will be the 2nd day on this one. Yeah, the 4th day to do this second pendant, or the 3rd pendant in this tutorial, because I did this pendant, and I'm going to do another one. So it'll be 4 days in 1 week. You know, that's a lot. And then to edit and upload and everything. I try to post as many projects as I do. You know, they may not be all to people's liking, but if I'm creating it, I'm recording it. So before I lay my veneer, so this is the cane I'm going to use that I made. Someone made almost, by following my tutorial, it almost came out, I mean, honestly, like identical. I shit you not. I was so shocked. I was like, that looks like mine. So it almost came out identical. I'm so thrilled with that. And I think she used Pardo, which is why it looks so identical. So what I'm going to do is apply resin to this one and get that going. Then I'm going to put this veneer on the same way we did these ones because they were squares. And then I haven't decided what pumpkin I want to use, so this is the pumpkin I used here. And again, if I would have just cut a slice and put it on here, you would see, unless the translucent covers your whole background, there would have been a line where the translucent wasn't. So that's why I cut all the translucent off. Okay? Same pumpkin, just cut the translucent off. And obviously when I cut it, it got a little squish. It's not as long as this one is. But I may decide to use this guy. I don't know. We'll see what it looks like when I put it on the background. This one I showed you how to make a shadow on. I was going to use them together, and I still may. But not on this one. Not on this project. I was going to have one like overlapped a little bit. That's what I was going to do. So anyways, let me get some resin on this one. I also have to touch up the resin on this one here. The other thing I do notice with the Easy Dome resin is it smears, but it also scratches when you try to clean the resin off, or that smear layer off. It scratches a little bit more than other resins. And I'm just using a paper towel. I also used, last night, I used one of these cotton things to do your nails, and it kind of scratches it. So I like the Easy Dome resin in some things, but I don't like it for others. I don't like it 100%. I wish it had other properties. I wish it didn't scratch as much. I wish it didn't get that film. I like how it doesn't distort, but yet you don't get distortion, but it takes forever to cure. And it's kind of liquidy. So I'm rambling tonight. I'm so sorry. But I missed a spot right there. So I have to recoat the whole thing. So I need to clean it with alcohol to get any grease off, and then and that smear layer off, and then I'll recoat this one, and I will coat the first layer on this one, just the background, because I got to build the resin up, and then I'll do this one, and I'll probably actually show you how I lay this on, but I'll fast forward it.